What's going on, internet? I am the mass man, and I got a viewer question. Now, the viewer asked that I leave his name off, so I will. His or her. I'm assuming it's a man, but his or her name off. So I will. And the viewer question is, or was, what do you think about the $15 an hour minimum wage? The proposal for minimum wage being raised to $15 an hour. Now, maybe I got this question because I said that I had a degree in business administration, but you gave me a very, very difficult question. Your question is kind of like asking me to break down string theory, because it can be done, but it takes somebody who is, well versed in that field, who is well versed in that science. Raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, and whether or not raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour is an economics question. It's a question of economics. Is it feasible to raise the minimum wage in the United States to $15 an hour? And what would be the implications? To give you any type of a credible answer, I would have to have a better understanding of economics than I have. But I do tell people to send me whatever questions they want. So I guess I'm obligated to give them some type of answer. Minimum wage being driven up to $15 an hour, or being mandated to be $15 an hour, is kind of one of the main reasons why I am leery of a Bernie Sanders. Because Bernie Sanders, he talks a good game. He says a lot of things that people want to hear. He champions a lot of causes that people are interested in. But there's a reason why I preferred Ron Paul to a Bernie Sanders, because Ron Paul was a very, very pragmatic, intelligent guy. He was he understood what the country needed, what the economy needed, what the problems were, and how to break them down. See, he was targeting the Federal Reserve and talking about how the Federal Reserve was unjust and needed to be dismantled, how it did nothing for the American people. He was talking about we should have a foreign policy of neutrality. He talked about several other things, and everything he talked about was very practical, very reasonable. And he was a student of economics. And everything he said was backed up with, research. Bernie Sanders, to my knowledge, is not a student of economics. He doesn't study economic textbooks. He's not, brilliant when it comes to what the economy needs and what it does. Now, anybody who runs for Congress, or at least most of them, are intelligent people. So I'm not saying that he can't be informed about the implications of a $15 an hour wage hike, but he doesn't explain how it would all, affect everything. Now, I apologize. Now, the person who gave me the question also gave me a bunch of articles to read. And I wrote down a couple of notes. There was an article about McDonald's and about how McDonald's was reacting to the $15 an hour wage hike, that they were reacting to it by having kiosks, where customers would just type their orders into the kiosk and they would eliminate the need for human being employees. Well, I also read a story about Snopes, which kind of contradicted that story. And Snopes' article said that since 2011, McDonald's has been integrating the touchscreen technology into restaurants in Europe, and they have been experimenting with it. So this is not a reaction to the proposed $15 an hour wage hikes. It's just something that's inbuilt in the system. What you have to remember about a business, or about how businesses are run in a capitalist society, they operate off of a single mission: increase profits or increase revenue, reduce cost. Now, common sense will tell you at some point there's only so much money you can make at any one thing, which is why a lot of McDonald's restaurants are closing, which is why a lot of Walmart stores are closing, because they've been in this constant, mission to expand and to just get bigger and bigger and consume more and more money, more and more real estate. But if you're not trying to increase revenue, you're trying to reduce cost. And the human worker, if you can eliminate them, if you can get rid of them, is a cost that you can reduce. Now, it also said in the Snopes article, Snopes is a website that debunks myths. It also said that, there are costs associated with the machine. You have to purchase the machine, you have to maintain the machine, you have to program the machine, it has to be partially manned by a human being. So there's still cost associated with the machine. It's not free. It's not a one-time cost. There still are costs associated with having a machine. But I think that restaurants are experimenting and are dabbling with the technology, so to get to a point where they can have the lowest cost and the lowest number of real life human beings. That's just what businesses are trying to do. Most businesses don't exist to serve any real purpose. They exist to make money and make money for themselves. So if they can run a business, if they can run $1 billion business, and it just be, the board of it, what do they call it? The executive board, I forget what it's called, the board of executives, if they can just be those 12 or 20 people, sitting at the top raking in profits for themselves, they do that all day long. They have no problem doing that. So basically, there's two schools of thought when it comes as far as the 5 or 6 articles that I was able to read on the subject. There are two main schools of thought. There's a school of thought that says raising the minimum wage would help the economy to $15 an hour. It would help the economy, and it would have a very minimal risk on businesses, on job loss. It would there's no discernible negative implication from raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. The other side of the coin, according to the articles that the guy left, and I will leave you a link to all of the articles that the guy gave me and the one that he didn't, he or she. The other side of it is that if you raise the minimum wage, it will actually hurt the poorest or the most unskilled worker. It would affect the person that you're trying to help the most. It would hurt them the worst for whatever reason, because of hours and how it worked out. It would hurt them and it would impact them the worst. When I think about minimum wage, being raised to $15 an hour, it just sounds like one of those things that are too good to be true. Now, one thing that I did learn is that there is a difference, that the minimum wage wouldn't just be raised to $15 an hour everywhere. The proposal, or what people are clamoring for, is for minimum wage to federally be raised to 10.10, and for it to be raised to 15 in high cost of living areas. But then I got a question. Okay, I think that's a more sensible plan. It's 10 everywhere, and it's 15, in the harshest areas. But as somebody who's worked a couple of bullshit jobs, I think I only had like 3 real jobs in my life, and I'm currently on my third now. And I've never made more than $10 an hour. But at these little jobs that don't pay a whole lot of money, a lot of times people will complain about the amount of hours that they get. If you're gonna raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, are you also gonna guarantee workers a certain amount of hours every week? Because what if what if you raise the minimum wage and they do the scheduling in such a way that they make it where people only get 3 or 4 hours a week, when they would have got, like, like if a business just made adjustments, like they just figured out how to employ people in a super part-time, a super as needed basis, a on demand, on call sort of situation. They manipulated the hours so that, okay, we pay the 10.10 or the $15 an hour, but we schedule it in such a way as it not even affect us. So does the $10 an hour or the $15 an hour, does that come with a guaranteed amount of hours that you have to have a person working? Because most businesses, most entry level positions that you can get, most jobs that don't require some kind of certification or some kind of advanced specialized degree, like a nursing or a doctor or carpentry or whatever, most jobs like that, they don't hire people full time. They don't give full time. They give part time. And sometimes they don't even guarantee you a certain amount of hours. So that can be one of the things that are against it. Now, is the same situation in place with the minimum wage being raised to $15 an hour, $10.10 federally, and $15 in certain areas? Is the same situation in place as it relates to people who are allowed to get tips? So do bartenders, do they now make 15, or do they still get paid, $2 an hour and tips? And waitresses, $3 an hour and tips. Is it that, or does every worker now get the $15 an hour minimum wage? Does every worker, regardless of their job, get paid that? Also, what is the stress level that a business can take when it comes to having to pay these wages? Like, how much of a burden can they bear? How much of a cost can they handle? Is there any way for them to compensate, for the high level of cost of everybody now having that large minimum wage. And another thing, would they reduce people's wages to compensate for minimum wage being risen up? Let's say that your minimum wage at your business now is $7.25, $8 an hour. But you have certain people in your company that are, certain people that are salaried, certain people who are hourly, who make 15, maybe $20 an hour. What if businesses reduced their higher salaried or higher paid workers' salary? What if you were making 18 and now minimum wage has went up to $10.10 and now they pay you 13 or 13.25? They reduce your wage. Do they have a right to reduce your wage? I know that certain companies do reduce pay. They do reduce how much they pay you, and they have that right. So what if they just reduce the pay of higher paid, non-management or lower level management to compensate? What if they reduce benefits? There is a whole lot of things that businesses can do if this is imposed, to deal with it and to make people suffer and to make people squirm. I don't feel that artificially just hiking up the minimum wage is the best thing for the American worker. Now, there was a lot said in some of the articles about minimum wage was never designed to be long-term employment. And, minimum wage jobs or entry-level jobs is really what they were referring to. There used to be entry-level jobs that you can get without being skilled labor, and you could support a family. Now, they made the contention that, minimum wage jobs were never that, but entry-level jobs, unskilled labor jobs, were able to support a family. Like, people, you didn't have to have some type of advanced degree or technical skill to work in a factory job, but you made enough to support a family on that. So there is no decent place where unskilled labor can go to find a decent wage. And they talked about, if I think FDR, in one of the articles on Forbes, FDR, if his plan was adjusted today for inflation, that it would come out to $4.20, and that would come out to $8,700 a year. And I'm supposing that this is based on a 40-hour work week. And there were people saying that you could live off of $8,700 a week. Now, let me kind of break it down, because I think they said that came out to about $700 a month. My math is a little iffy, but that sounds about right to me. 87, it's about 725, but let's 730. But let's say it's about 700 to make it very simple. Now, I live in Louisiana, and probably the cheapest rent that you would be able to find in Louisiana would be in Baton Rouge. In Baton Rouge, you can get a decent sized apartment in a shady neighborhood for about $500. So, so if you were making that amount of money, this so-called living wage that you should be able to live on, I'm guessing, now I'm assuming the person who was writing the Forbes article is saying that with no government assistance, with no kind of government aid, that this would be enough to live on. So that would be enough for rent, if you made $700. but it wouldn't be enough for much else. If you had a single pair of pants and a single pair of shoes and a shirt, then that means that you have $200 cash to pay for all of your other expenses. Now, light bills vary, but I've never heard of anybody paying less than $100 for a light bill. So unless you don't have lights, that's your other 100 gone. So you spend $500 in rent, and you spent your other $100 for electricity. But maybe you don't need electricity, but let's just say you do. Let's just be even generous. Let's say your electric bill was $50. So you got $150 left to go for the entire month. Now, I'm assuming that there has to be some kind of a transportation. Like you got to get to and from work somehow. So maybe you take the bus. I rode the bus recently. Riding the bus is not something I do very often, but I did ride the bus, and I found out that it's $1.25 to ride the bus. To just sit on the bus. And I think a pass for a week is like $3 or $4. So let's just say a week pass, is $5, so $20. So now we're taking that down to 130. Okay, so that's getting you to and from work. Now you got to eat off of your $130 for 30 days. What food? Now, assuming that you spend $10 a day on food, which is a reasonable amount. $10 a day on food, if you have $130, would get you to the 1.5 week point before you ran out of money. And that's not covering your water bill. That's not covering insurance. That's not covering clothes. That's not covering entertainment. That's not covering a whole bunch of other miscellaneous expenses that could rise up. So for the person who said that $8,700 is enough money to live on, that really is hilarious to me. That's really funny that somebody would make that statement in 2016, with a straight face. They said it in the article, and it was also in the comment section. I recommend that you check it out. But honestly, minimum wage being risen to $15 an hour is a very complex issue. Ultimately, what I would say is I don't agree with minimum wage being raised to $15 an hour. I think that the government should have an aggressive educational infrastructure that recognize this, that a government is something that can and in a lot of cases should go into debt. Now, it can go into debt for foolish reasons, or it can go into debt for positive reasons. If we got a nation that is obsessed with putting itself into debt, then why not go into debt for something that can actually have a return? If the problem that you're having in America is that you have a massive amount of unskilled or lowly skilled labor, then you need to make it very easy and very accessible for people to become highly skilled labor. Like me, I'm burned out of school. I can't go back to school. I went to school for some dumb shit, and I owe money, for some bullshit, and can't get transcripts released. I can't go back to school. Somebody like me, who is willing to go to school, who is willing to do the work at school, I should be able to go to school to get some type of technical degree. As many technical degrees as I want, as high a level of skill as I want. There should be an offering, like if you want to study philosophy, if you want to study women's studies, if you want to study, black studies or whatever you should have to pay out of pocket for that, because those are basically like the cosmetic procedures from the medical field. But anything that has been studied and deemed necessary and relevant for the country, that has been deemed necessary, as far as growth industries, industries that the country need, like engineers, software developers, chemists, scientists, mathematicians, all, anything on that field, anything in that area, this highly skilled labor, there should be subsidies, massive subsidies to educate the population. Now you're going to go into debt, but at the end of the day, you're going to have people who are now highly skilled and who can find employment. And not only can they just find a job, but they can bring jobs that actually improve the national GDP, that actually improves the US's ability to compete globally with other industrialized nations, that we will actually be able to export, and we will actually be able to manufacture, and we will have all of these jobs in the country, and it will pay for itself over a period of time. So that's what I would do. I would invest heavily in education. I think as far as poor people, and taking care of the poor, if you really want to take care of the poor, just expand welfare, make welfare easier to get, but have conditions, tie welfare to getting this education that you want people to have, and tie maintaining a certain level of welfare to doing, well at your education. It's just like, if you get below a certain score, in school, they'll cut your financial aid. It should be like that with welfare. If you are on welfare, it's presumably because you can't afford to support yourself. Your needs will be assessed and they'll take care of your needs, but you must be getting educated so that you can benefit society, so that you can give back. Whether you want to be self-employed, open up your own business, or work on a contract basis, or work for a company, whatever, get one of the degrees in a growth industry, or an industry that's in need, that needs to be developed in the United States. You're getting welfare because you're poor, but you're also getting educated at the same time, and then we'll help you connect with a certain job, and now you can have a job making 100,000, 110,000, 90,000, 70,000, whatever. Now you gotten money out the ass. You're not working like a slave. You're not working 15-hour days. Maybe you're working 12 hours, but people work 12 hours for minimum wage. So they're going to love working 12 hours for $60 an hour. Or maybe you work a regular 8-hour shift. But now you're not just working and getting paid for work that's not valuable. The work that you're doing is actually raising the nation up, raising the economy up, making the whole nation competitive worldwide with every other country. So that's how I would do it. That's the best answer I can give you. I'm not an expert in this subject. I don't have the resources, to get the books, to read the articles. I don't have internet access, all day, every day. I'm usually running errands for people, for no pay and no appreciation. So, I'm usually in a supermarket near you picking up some bullshit. So I don't have the time I would like to really be as familiar with the inner workings of economics. But that's the best answer I can give you. I don't think minimum wage should be raised for everybody. I think that education and resources for people in need, and tying those resources to turning them into highly skilled labor, and helping them connect with employers, or helping them find jobs, or helping them start businesses or companies. All of those steps, all of that, if you did all of that, then that would be what the nation really needs, and that would be what the economy really needs. But that's what I have to say about that. Let me know what you think in the comments. You can rate the video, like it, dislike it, be honest. You can subscribe to my channel to keep up with the videos that I'm making. If there's any question at all that you would like me to answer, or any topic that you want me to cover, you can email me at themrmassman@gmail.com. You can follow me on Twitter or find me on Facebook at themrmassman. That is all I have to say about this subject. So I will see you in the next video.